Welcome to the very first special edition of Brothers in Aerospace and Defense, where we explore the latest innovations in career strategies and the engineers shaping the future.
Yeah, that's right, Dwayne. So we're live here at NSBE, and we really want to discuss, what the advancements in high-tech fields like aerospace, energy, and those defense programs, and how that is really involving our new world.
But before we begin, it's always NSBE's tradition to begin with our mission, which is to increase the number of Black engineers who excel academically, succeed professionally, and positively impact the community. We're celebrating over 50 years of living this mission, and Rob and I are honored to be a part of this great organization. We have a powerhouse panel joining us today, leaders from the NSBE's special interest groups, SIGs, who are making waves in their respective industries.
And then before we introduce the panelists, I would be remiss to not mention that it is Women's History Month. So I know we have a lot of women pioneers in the building now for the future, and I know we've stood on the shoulders of those in the past. So I just want to recognize that as we move forward. So now I'll let the panelists introduce themselves.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ananga Folly. I lead NSBE's Aerospace Special Interest Group. And my experience has been mainly in the aerospace and defense industry, also with some experience in the aviation sector. I came to NSBE actually through the aerospace SIG. There was a individual who was talking about we need to join the SIG because we're doing important research that's going to push technology forward. And I was really excited about the opportunity to explore different aspects of aerospace, in particular the space industry. And so I joined NSBE.
Awesome. Thanks.
Hi, everybody. My name is Natasha Herring. I'm the Energy SIG Director. I have a decade in energy consulting, mostly working in the utility industry. My undergrad is in environmental engineering, and my master's in global energy management. And I'm really excited to be here today. I am based in Denver, Colorado. And, one of the energy is not in a silo. And so I'm really appreciative of being in this conversation, although it's brothers in aerospace and defense. Energy, we're not in a silo, and so I'm really glad that I get to be a part of this conversation today. So thank you.
I mean, we need stuff to power the stuff we do, so I think
Come on, energy's the lifeblood.
I think it's important, right? Kind of like overarching, right? Like oxygen, we need it.
Absolutely.
Right?
I think energy is the lifeblood for all of our industries, so thank you.
Hey everybody, my name is Seth Graham. I'm representing the NSBE Young Technical Professional SIG. I am the programs chair. I joined NSBE about 6 years ago when I was the college collegiate chapter president. And so that has just gone all the way into SIG leadership. I became programs chair last year. I was the finance chair 2 years ago, but I like to wear many hats, as many of us do in NSBE. I work at the intersection of artificial intelligence and aerospace. I have degrees in mechanical and aerospace engineering. One day we'll go for that PhD, but I got to pay the bills real quick.
Right. So you can tell he's young because they start using these new terms, right? It's called the intersection of such and such, right? I'm learning these things as I'm being around the young folks, right? They know how to frame what you're doing. We used to say, hey, I got a map, I did this and I got, no, they said, I work at the intersection in between. So they live in the gray. So this is why we need this young self on the panel today. So I appreciate that. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. So let's get into it, right? So let's start with where we are today. While Black engineers are making strides in aerospace industry, energy, right, in the defense fields, representing in leadership and technical roles, still remains kind of low, right? What are some of the challenges that we face that you see in the industry? And I'm going to pick with the more experienced ones on this side, and we're going to have Brother Seth give his opinion on what he sees as he's new into his work life. So what do you think?
So when we talk about major challenges, there's a lot of interesting things happening across the industry. There's the influence of technology. We're building more and more complex systems. You're constantly hearing about the impact of digital technology on how we design the next generation of aerospace and defense systems. And then when it comes to NSBE kind of working through this change, the question we must ask ourselves is, what are some of those strategic skills and partnerships that can really help us navigate this industry and also address some of the major problems that are happening? I think it's pretty awesome that we have both energy and then young professionals here. When you're talking about the aerospace industry in particular, propulsion is one of the things that is really, really important. What are some of the new technologies? And so as NSBE members, as you're looking at really working in the aerospace industry, one of the things you have to ask yourself is the items that I'm studying and working in, how are they being impacted in terms of where industry is going? And so access to the different technical trends is important. Also, access to the technology that is necessary to learn about some of those different trends. For example, one of the things that I've dealt with across my career is the whole concept of how we're designing systems and moving into model-based systems engineering. And so that is influencing how we design future systems. So where are you getting the opportunity to practice that and really hone in on those skills?
Awesome. Rob, you want to jump in?
Yeah, and then absolutely. So that was, talking about impacts, you're talking about access. I think those two things are really amazing. But Seth, I guess from your point of view, as you're looking forward into your career, what are some of the things that you're seeing?
Yeah, so some of the big challenges that I'm seeing on the more inexperienced side is understanding why, kind of like the motivation, what motivates some of these problems, right? There's a huge tech space out here. And so understanding why do we want to invest in AI? Why do we want to invest in quantum? And kind of like breaking it down bit by bit. For example, with ChatGPT, it's easy to be in college and be a consumer of it, but why does it work the way it does? Why is it so good at what it does? And so as you kind of understand what's going on, you kind of figure out these are the problems that we can address. Like we can make this more computationally efficient. We can make this work even faster. We can make this more distributed. And so just being able to understand what needs to be done and how it's being done as a young technical professional is super important so that you can be like the next big contributor in the tech space.
So I just learned a new word. I just wrote it down and I said computational efficient.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I learned a new word today. I'm just telling you, Seth is awesome. This is cool. He's already
much appreciated.
Oh, no problem. So Natasha, you want to tell us what's happening in your world?
Absolutely. Two things come to mind as far as just challenges are, one is the energy workforce of the future. I think when it comes to our energy industry, we're pretty diverse. In the United States, we have quite a lot of bit of natural resources. And there's a lot of innovation happening in solar and wind and renewables and grid modernization and smart grid and energy efficiency. There's a lot of different things happening. One of the challenges is how are we preparing the next generation to really bridge those gaps, right? The expertise that's in the energy industry, how are we creating really the pipeline and the pathway for the next generation, which is, I think, where NSBE comes in, right? Connecting the technical expertise that we have within our SIGs, within, NSBE as a whole, and how we're really preparing the next generation, how we're providing those leadership opportunities, those technical opportunities to work on projects, to be in the conversations, to really be progressing things forward. And the second, major thing I think is energy equity. It's because there isn't great representation where we are. We're not in the rooms to be able to advocate, to speak up for our communities, for Black and Brown communities. And so I think those two things kind of are challenges that I think NSBE is really well positioned to partner with other industries, to partner with other minority-based organizations within our field to really progress and change kind of the narrative, change the pathway so that there's higher influx of Black and Brown people in leadership and in opportunities for impact.
Can you go more in depth about, you said energy equity? Dive a little more deeper there. Just double click on that for me. What do you think? What are your thoughts around it? That's a powerful word. What does that mean? Right.
I think it can look differently in the industries that you're in. I was in a SIG business meeting yesterday and we happened to dive pretty deep down into energy efficiency and what that looks like in multifamily buildings, right? There's a lot of minorities, there's a lot of people in general living in multifamily buildings, and they tend to be the hardest population to provide utility programming to because who gets the incentive, who gets to claim savings? There's kind of these nuances. And so that's probably a really micro example of how energy equity can appear in the energy efficiency industry, but it could be as broad as where are wastewater treatment plants and where are, disposal sites? Are they in neighborhoods of color, people of color, or are they distributed equally or kind of away from where people are living? So I think energy equity is really thinking about the impacts that the energy industry and really all of our industries across have on various communities of color. And oftentimes, because we're not at the table or because we're not aware of what's going on, we are in the cycle of we don't know and ignorance. And I think NSBE is really positioned to be a partner in changing that across several different industries and areas.
Yeah, and I love that outreach part of it. So I know yesterday at the mixer with the SIGs, I definitely learned a lot about outreach and what they're doing more with the community, even that internationally. So I think, the Aerospace SIG, I think, is one of the leaders in that. Could you, expand a little bit more about how the outreach is going on with the Aerospace SIG and, the international initiatives that you have going on?
Most definitely. One of the things we really focus on is thinking about those experiences. So experiential learning is at the heart of one of the things that the Aerospace SIG focuses on, and it's at the heart of our outreach program. Right now, if you look at a number of forecasts, it's about $1 trillion that is forecasted for the growth of the space market by 2040. So what does that mean? That entire workforce is growing. How are we preparing students to really engage in that industry? Every single engineering discipline is going to impact the space industry. There is algoculture, there is data. So one of the things we focused on is, for example, across the continent of Africa a couple of years ago, there was some research being focused on the fact that we had locusts, a locust issue there. And so one of the things we decided to do is look at how we can leverage space technology to figure out where the swarms are happening with the locusts. And we engage K through 12 students in the US and then also students in Kenya. And so they had the opportunity to really explore what are some of the swarm effects, how do you use CubeSat technology? And that really turned into an opportunity to just understand space a little bit more, understand communication systems. And that is what we focus on. Recently, we were in Kenya back to back looking at space habitats. So whenever we're talking about going on different space missions, what are the models that you're using to look at survivability of humans in space? Right now, when you look at different populations, you get different use cases. And so we're asking our students to think about what are some of the use cases that are important to you? And then they're going through that ideation process to think about what are different things that we can test out to see how we might have power in space, how we might have different communication systems in a different space habitat. We also support a drone program. So there's a number of different activities that are really on the cusp of what are some of the technological priorities of different industries. And we try to match that up with outreach opportunities, both in the U.S. and across the continent of Africa.
That was a brilliant value prop that you just presented, right? From this small organization of very intense, sharpest minds on the planet that happen to look like me and you, right? That has solved a potential issue, the locust infestation, using space technology, understanding what that is in this realm, right? Mm-hmm. In this area. So there's the value prop of NASA, the Black engineers, just shown, right? And publicly, we're going to make sure these words are coming out because we don't get this, we don't see that much, right? And this goes next to our next segment of questions, right? It's about how we actively bridge these gaps to ensure we have a problem-solving entity, right? We need to start analyzing problems. We really need to start looking at how we bridge these gaps and ensure engineers that look like us are prepared for this new level of success that we got to get, right? I'm really interested to hear how, and I'm going to start with Seth down at the end because it's always good to hear from the youngest of us. Are you in a good spot, right? How do you think how NSBE can work to bridge these gaps, ensure that our engineers are prepared for success?
Yeah, so the YTP SIG likes to develop programming that envelops a 4-stage process. And I think this could be abstracted to the rest of NSBE, but we have a lot of programming that involves the LEAD process. That's an acronym. And so that stands for lead, engage, assess, and discover. And so we want to build leaders. Like, we want you to understand your personality style. How do you lead? How do you use your EQ to be a better leader in the field? How do you engage with your community? How do you build those connections and network? You know, as a young professional, it's always imperative to engage with the greats and learn from the people that have done it for so many more years than I have. assessing yourself, where are you falling short? What can you do better? Where is your current place in, the STEM community? What could you do better? And so also discovering new facets of technology, just understanding like the new technology, like I said, quantum, artificial intelligence, et cetera. And so kind of just embodying this lead mindset. I think that that's how we kind of are able to bridge certain gaps, in this space through NSBE.
That's an amazing answer. I think, it's as leaders in its space, I think it's on us to really make sure that we have, that engagement with the new generation and making sure we're enveloped with new technology and really get a good understanding of that as we move forward. I think, as, from an energy SIG, what do you see from all the new autonomous vehicles coming out, all the new capabilities coming out? How is energy positioning itself to really make sure that is part of the future and make sure that we are part of that conversation?
Absolutely. So our energy SIG the vision is for it to be a home for if you are an energy enthusiast, you don't know anything about energy, but you're like, hey, I get an energy bill every month. Let me look. What are these fees down here? What do they mean? Right. The math ain't always mathing. So whether you're asking questions about, energy just kind of at the beginning phases, or you're an energy expert, right? You have your PhD in an energy or clean tech field. It's really to be a home and a space for everyone within that spectrum. There's kind of 3 priorities that we're focused on. One is networking and making sure that we as a energy SIG know the value and the resources that are in the room. So our big focus is on making sure, the SIGs are not region based. And so we have people across the globe, across the nation particularly. And so that we know who's in the room, that we know where people are, and we know the value that's there. Our second is on really growth and creating not just professional development opportunities, but also programming that really can take someone from that energy enthusiast to the energy expert. So making sure that we're providing programming on new and innovative technologies, on research from industry experts, from companies. So if you were interested, come chat with me. But we would love to highlight your company, highlight the innovation and innovative work that you're doing, kind of partner with your ERGs to highlight the work you're doing, also expose our membership and our expertise and see, what can grow from there. And then lastly is creating project opportunities for our members to really gain expertise, to gain experience, to gain technical expertise. And so you're even idealizing yesterday about some of the projects that people wanted to work on. And so really providing a place to build those technical skills so that we can be at the table and stay there.
So what's happening in the aerospace SIG from Bridging Success?
So for the aerospace SIG, one of the major things that we've focused on when we talk about industry trends is that we've really focused on developing a technical focus matrix. And so what is that technical focus matrix does? It really looks at the key areas that the SIG needs to focus on from a technical development standpoint, a technical research, advocacy, and outreach. So all of our programming is really centered on making sure that people have an opportunity to network from a development space, do research, publish. In an advocacy standpoint, really look at expanding their impact in the industry. As I mentioned before, we have aerospace work across the U.S., Africa, and also the Caribbean. Just last year, we had a project out in Jamaica where we really were focusing on that experiential learning aspect. So when we come to the aerospace SIG, one of the major things that we like to say is that we are really focused on cultivating that community that allows people to define, develop, and deliver future solutions in the aerospace industry. And so in order to do that, we really center on giving people that right access. So we have aerospace systems conferences. They're both virtually and in person. We have a number of individuals engaged in different research papers connected to our technical focus matrix that has 12 major areas that are considered where we need to grow, whether it's in aviation, defense, or space. So those different layers are ones that are top of mind when we're also just looking at where do we need to develop more. And the goal is we accept everybody. Last year, the theme across the U.S. government was everybody has a place in space, and we've really adopted that in the aerospace industry. I mentioned focusing on space. When you see that the market growth is expected to be almost $1 trillion, think about the business opportunity. Think about entrepreneurship. Think about creating those different business. How does your particular discipline going to have an impact? Pharmaceuticals, there's research going on. If you're in biotech, there's research going on in manufacturing. So the possibilities are huge. Agriculture is one of the big things that I learned when I was in Kenya last year, how people were doing agriculture research through space. And so.
Awesome. All right. So now it's time for audience participation, right? And we ask that if folks who have a question to please come up and walk and come up here to the mic because we're videotaping it. So I want to see your beautiful faces on the podcast. Please don't be shy. All y'all got your haircuts and hair done, so NSBE. So I know you're looking good. It's still early Friday. You ain't sweated it out yet. The old school party tomorrow. You'll be all right. While you have questions, and please ask the panelists whatever's on your heart, whatever you feel, including myself and Rob. But while we're waiting for the questions to answer, I really want to just dive deep into maybe the mental health portion of it. Things like how's everybody doing in this environment that we're in? How you feeling, right? And not just, don't give me the canned answer. We're in a cone of graciousness and safety here. Like how are you navigating this space, right? And I'll actually start. For me, it's been kind of challenging, right? Both from a work perspective and from the home perspective, just really trying to understand how I can navigate, how I can also offer the tons of advice, and I'm a shoulder to cry on for hundreds of people. And so not only just my family, but everybody. And it's important for me to fill myself up and understand what does that look like and how are we navigating. And I've really been leaning into my Bible. I've been reading into a lot of my favorite book right now I'm reading is Let Them by Mel Robbins, right? A really great book to just, get through these things, these changes we're going through, right? But also as I come, and I said, I'm coming to NSBE, right? And the reason I'm coming to NSBE is because it gives you that, we used to call it that energy shot, right? Where I'm with my people, my family, my friends, folks that's known me longer than my wife's known me, longer than, just a long time, right? That know me and know how to give me the joy I need because we're out there in this space. What do you think, Rob? How you doing, brother?
I mean, I think for myself, I lean into physical activity as far as keeping me busy and keeping me, grounded. I play soccer at college and I'm continuing to play soccer right now. So that's one of the things I've been more heavily involved with now. It's like just physical activity, just to keep my mental, on track. Because like I said, if you go down the rabbit hole for too many things, that you could, you just get trapped down there. So events like this and NSBE conference, it gives you that life that you need to fill you up.
What about you, Three? Jump in, anybody?
I can jump in.
Yeah.
Definitely leaning into faith and spirituality for sure.
Hold on a second. Y'all give me all these good words y'all been training. What you say that again now? Faith. I'm with you there. I know we all love some Jesus now. Come on with it. What else now? What else?
I said spirituality. But I meant faith.
All right.
Jesus.
All right. I got you.
So that's a big part of just keeping my mental in the right space. And then also, as the energy industry where I'm in, I sit in consulting. And so we give advice. And now I'm like, ooh, what's happening? We're trying to stay up to date with all of the changes that are coming. So it's a little like, oh, this is more uncertainty than we're used to, right? Unprecedented uncertainty, if you will. And so I think one of the other things that I've been challenging myself in this time is to see what opportunities are here for innovation. I feel like nowadays with everyone creating a brand, with everyone, on social media, there's all of these movements, but within our industries, with our expertise, I'm like, how is this change, this innovation really an opportunity for us to innovate, to create more minority-owned businesses, to work together? And so for me, I'm looking for silver linings. Like, yes, it's different and than the way it has been. We'll be shifting possibly at some point. We don't know how and with what intensity, but where's the silver lining? That's usually my question. And, how with the agency we have and the ability in the spaces like NSBE, how can we partner together to really make sure that we are innovating? We've always innovated. Black and brown People have always been at the cusp of innovation and really driving that. And so how can we continue that?
I love that. I love that. What about you, my friend?
Yeah, so I also, to lean upon faith, every year I spend time going to a leadership summit. And one of the taglines is, when the leader gets better, everybody gets better. So it's really important at this time to invest in taking the time to reflect, understanding where you are in your pathway. And when I think about the aerospace industry and all that we do, at the end of the day, we're building solutions that not only protect, explore, and really can unlock opportunities for the communities that we reside in. And so when that stands as the overlining viewpoint of exactly who I am and what I'm doing through technology, that's the golden light, right? Really focusing on what's that impact in the communities that you are in. And that can expand. And when you think about NSBE and you think about everybody who's coming from around the world, there's an opportunity to do amazing work that's really expanding. Technology is a way to improve the communities that we're in. And so I think we're in a unique space. And so that's what I would say is my guide in life.
All right. Come on, Sil, bring it home.
All right. So I actually rediscovered my faith about like 2 years ago. So I've been leaning on that a little bit. As far as physical activity, I have been grinding like so hard. So like I have not had the time to be as active as I would like. I found that out when my bench press suffered tremendously last week. That was unfortunate, but kind of going back to the silver lining. I mean, I'm going to mourn at home and talk to my friends and family about what's going on, but there is always opportunity out there. So even if I don't like what's going on, while my oppressor is, benefiting from this, maybe I could find a way to benefit from like any sort of policy change. So for example, the recent tariffs, people's portfolios might have gotten hit, but if you were on some options calls, you might have gotten something beneficial. So just finding ways to make the best out of a bad situation. The YTP SIG, I actually did a workshop on using Python and MATLAB to create a trading bot to trade on the markets, similar to the whole aerospace technology, being applicable to agriculture. A lot of the mathematics and science that we use in aerospace can be applied to the market. So the controller that you use to control a rocket can be used to optimize your weights in a portfolio. So just trying to stay busy, learn new things, and just figure out even though I don't like what's going on, how can me and my peoples benefit from what's, going on, making the best of a bad situation.
That is brilliant, right? Mm-hmm. You heard about just people being innovative, all of us working out, getting a good sweat in, and then just leaning into each other, right? It's important. Any questions from the audience? I'll say everybody got up, move. Everybody, you're still all right, but that's all right. We can go right here. It's all good. So at our last episode, we just posted this out, the most recent one. We had this thing we called navigating this newness, right? Which dovetails in what we just talked about, this question. And some of the things that popped out from that session that we had, Rob, it was more about things that we can control, right? And I talked about like 3 things, and it's more like what we control, but what we know, right? Number 1 is this ain't new to black folks. This ain't new. How many of you have been in the industry long enough before we had these things called employee resource groups? Raise your hand, right? But we still got community. We still had executives. We still had people doing great things. We still came to NSBE. We still came to Bell. As a matter of fact, I dare even say we might have been more connected. We might have been more impactful with each other, for each other, right? So basically it's saying that our ancestors already told us the game, right? And it's important that we understand that we got plenty of experiences to lean on. We just got to start going back and sitting down, opening up that book, go and talk to mama and grandmama if she's still around, and uncle and friend and that most elder coworker. How do we really do this? And then when I thought about that, we also talked about, and Rob, you can jump in, we talked about it's still about performance. I was at a conference, one of my leadership conferences a couple of weeks ago, a lot of these very, very powerful African-American leaders in the Charlotte area, right? And one of them said, excellence demands excellence. I think that never stops, right? I see, I know I see 5 excellent faces in front of me, and they demand it out of me, and I'm sure that I demand it out of them. And I'm looking in the crowd, I bet there's about 50 of us in here. Same thing, right? And so we could control our output. So just, keep it tight, right? From that perspective. Rob, you want to add?
No, I would say, as you mentioned, you said excellence demands excellence, but iron also sharpens iron. So it's about your network that you have, and it's also building out that network. So it's like taking your network to the next level and making sure that you're connected to those next level leaders that may or may not look like you, but it's on you to really drive that home with your network and making sure that you're expanding that to the point where you're excelling yourself to a point where it can't be a question about race, diversity, everything else. Is you're performing to the point where they can't say no.
Yeah, sure. You want to add?
Yeah, when you said the output matters, the first thing that came to mind, you can control what you're learning. You can control what you're investing your time in. One of the things to the different groups that I lead in industry and then also in nonprofit spaces, the opener that I always say is, what's happening in technology? Do you know how it's impacting your discipline? And are you investing your time in learning the things that are going to drive you to, as Rob mentioned, to be the best or to know how to ask the right questions when you're trying to solve those complex problems? So when you're making that decision on where you're going to invest your time, that's the major thing everybody has control of. What are you learning? Every day you should be learning something that is going to help either propel you on a social side, emotional side, and a technical side, and having that balance.
That's awesome. And then the third thing that we talked about was just community. It is important that we lean into our community. This election taught us that, right? We have to lean into each other, not outside of ourselves. So what does that mean? That means what you are doing right now. You are right now at a wonderful conference that's leading for us. You are supporting 2 brothers who had an idea last year to say, hey, man, we, as a part of a program that we was in together, that we said, hey, you know what, let's do this thing. They don't know we exist in this field. They don't know that Rob is a autonomous guru, They don't know the way that did everything on the planet in aerospace and defense. Literally, they've been a part of a lot of big things and sharing. And so for us, it's saying, let's put this out there. Let's host our own personal brands out. And you guys doing that, leading into this and coming here and supporting us, it's important to us. And I honor you for doing this, and I appreciate that. We both do. But this is another thing. But also for the special interest group, we wanted to do this with the special interest group because these are, like I said last night, are the value props to the world more quickly. It doesn't have to worry about being sold to anybody. It has its own market back. So there's an opportunity here that we should, together, as we think through innovative ideas as businesses, do research, do things like that, we have a vehicle that we can go help solve some problems. I heard new words. I'm in the intersection of AI and something, right? I heard that word. I'm picking on self. I heard that word. Right? I heard that. I'm at the intersection of that. How many of us in this room literally are trying to figure out how does AI going to impact what I'm doing in my day-to-day? How can I add more value to that, right? How many of us isn't doing it? How many of us doing it? Everybody. So I heard, so right now we have an expert who's living it. And I'm sure there's a lot more in the crowd, right? Let's lean into him, right? Let's give him opportunities. Let's do that. So that's what leading in community looks like, right? And we talked about this.
Yeah.
Definitely.
The other piece of it that I want to highlight is that I think it's clear from our conversations here with the SIGs and also just the NSBE conference in general that NSBE isn't just about just student development.
Right.
It's really about building that community and being supportive of Black engineers throughout their entire life cycle of career space. So I think that's really stood out to me. And I hope it stood out for everyone here that's joining.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So I think we're about to get ready to wrap us up here. Appreciate it. I just want to leave our audience with some actions today. And as we always do, everybody knows how I am. They know me. They got to get to work if they come to a NSBE meeting and I'm talking. So they know me. So I'm going to ask the SIG directors here to say, what action would you ask of this crowd? What you require them? What would you need them to do for to improve what you do. And we think about that leading and community piece for your SIG. You want to start?
Yes, most definitely. When I think about us here is, I tell everybody your experience is your currency. And I would like everybody to think about how can you come to the aerospace SIG, given whatever lane you're working in, whether it's space, aviation, and defense, and join one of our technical teams where we're talking about where technology is going. We're researching some of the different, how to approach some of the different complexities of these different areas. You know, we have aerospace connectivity and protection solutions. So that's looking at aerospace in the intersection of cybersecurity. We're looking at modernized aviation and evolution. So you're looking at how are we changing the aviation industry, how we're building different aircraft. We have aerospace biometrics. So if you're in the biomedical field, as they're looking at doing different missions, what are some of the things that we can do to kind of augment human performance in the body in those stressful situations? There's advancement in materials. We need to look at what are some of the new materials necessary for some of these different systems. And so if you go to our website, nsbe-aerospace.org, you'll see the technical priorities. So there's opportunities to have leaders in those areas. This is an opportunity for you to either give back or mentor teams, run different projects, start thought leadership circles, and then also explore business opportunities if you're interested. Because remember, this is a growing market, and across all three of those sectors, the forecasts are pretty lucrative.
So for energy, I have two asks. One is just get curious about energy in general. You know, I mentioned we all have an energy bill. Read your bill. There's some fees on there. There's some other stuff. Start to ask some questions. Really just get curious about energy. You know, what do you have to lose? You're paying for the bill anyway, right? But I think in general, one of the energy industry has definitely opportunities to grow when it comes to branding itself, when it comes to just, there's a lot of gaps and bridging those knowledge gaps. And I feel like people that look like us don't know as much as I would hope. And I'm even still learning, right? So one ask is just to get curious about energy and the ways that you touch the energy industry and do some research and ask some questions, you know, start to have that conversation so that we're having these conversations over the dinner table or when we're talking about finances or, you know, how does energy affect our lives? Because it really is the lifeblood. So just curious about energy is the first one. Secondly, when it comes to the energy SIG, we are definitely welcoming of partnerships, welcoming of specific ways that you want to get involved. It's a great time. So if you are a leader with a number of experience or skills that you want to pour back to, we have different insight series where you can come and talk to our membership. If you're a company and you want to host, you know, a show and tell about the innovation that you're working on or a project that you've done, please let us know. There's ways we can connect both in person and virtual. And then also if there's just skill development opportunities, we're really trying to equip our members with skills and development. Please come chat with me. So energydirector@nsbe.org, or I'll be around. Those are the ways you can connect. But please think about what you have to offer, whether it's programming, whether it's technical development, leadership insight. Or a project. We really are at a place and historically have been pretty dynamic to ebb and flow with our members and what they want as well as what our partners want. And so great opportunity to jump in and partner with us.
I also have two asks. So the first is to think about the lead mindset, you know, lead, engage, assess, discover, and think about that, you know, at work, at home, how you can just continuously improve upon, you know, whatever it is you're doing. My second ask, my father told me, he said, closed mouths don't get fed. I'm trying to get fed. So I'm going to open my mouth and ask y'all, please do engage with the young technical professionals. We are growing. This is our second year. And so we just hope to engage with the general body. As far as like the young technical professionals, we love to talk to anybody who is in college, grad school, anybody with less than 10 years of experience, anybody with over 10 years of experience. Really, there's something to always gain with the interaction. So yeah, if you're interested, come find me, come talk to me. You can also shoot me an email at ytpprograms@nsbe.org.
Right.
Yeah, thank you, Seth. Thank you, everyone, for your responses. I think, you know, a lot of great takeaways here. 4 things I'll leave the audience with is 1, you know, really take advantage of the necessary resources that you have here. So that's not only the SIGs, but also the website, and just really get into the space of learning more. Second being, continue to lead with excellence. I think it engages the certifications, if you're involved with that, publications, and everything that you could do to continue to lead with your own personal excellence. And at this conference, meeting someone new. So I encourage everyone to meet someone new that you didn't already know before this conference, just to make sure that you continue growing your own personal network. And then lastly, that personal development plan that we all talked about and each one of us hit on throughout this whole conversation. Continue to grow that, and that will set you on a bright path for the future. Thanks, Dwayne.
Excellent, Rob. So huge thank you to everybody. Let's clap it up for everybody. And we want to thank you for joining today. Please check us out online. For those that are listening, feel free to check out our YouTube site. We have a QR code streaming here on the presentation. We also, Rob and I also have separate newsletters that you can be a part of and think about. Myself is really focused on your leadership acumen and building those things. It's called a storyteller. Rob has his.
Yeah, so it's mainly based off of everything autonomous. So from an air, land, sea, and space standpoint, anything capability-wise going on, any new capabilities coming out. It's called Autonomous Platforms for the Future. Please check that out too.
So you can find all that information on all our YouTubes, all our Instagrams, all our socials that we have out there. We want to thank the Net Side of Black Engineers for hosting us. It's good to be home, good for this family reunion. I wish all of you so much. Have a great conference, and we'll see you next time at the next episode of Brothers in Aerospace Defense. Have a good one. Thank you so much.